And we move at light speed. Last of a dying breed. My Akis move at light speed.
I can feel eyes on me everywhere I go. Not paranoid.
Good day, brothers and sisters. Now, first things first, understand that, remember, I don't pick sides, and Fox is a huge Republican type of thing. I mean, they push some really dumb things, but as we all know, everything is a script, and that there's somebody there, dude's reading the teleprompter. Yeah, he goes off with some jokes sometimes and stuff like that. Tucker Carlson actually is kind of funny. And you're about to see what I'm talking about. How we all understand that I can read between the lines. So when you're watching these news articles, when you're reading a news article, when you're watching them, when you're watching another person's channel, it's always good to be skeptical. It's always good to read between the lines, because some people are out there to deceive you. Some people are out there to give you a half truth, and some people are just out there to straight up just control you. Let's watch this segment.
And welcome to Tucker Carlson's Happy Friday. It's pretty hard to argue with people who are passive aggressive. You may have tried it before.
First things first, before we actually get into this, I am not for abortion. I am pro-life. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you're out there with your legs open and you running around whoring it up, you get pregnant, you can't handle having a baby or whatever, so you go and kill it. They sell Plan B at the dollar stores. All right, I am highly against people doing anything to children. That child was created, that human being was made when you opened your legs, when you stuck that little thing up in there. Not a couple weeks later. If you ain't woman enough, you ain't man enough to take care of what God has given you that you brought upon yourself, I'm going to tell you what. Children, when you raise a child, depending, other than, marriage and having a child, it's part of the ascension process, just to let you know. And how you raise that child, how you do in that marriage, it's big, brothers and sisters. If you ruin a human being's life from childhood, if you kill it, you rape it, you teach it wrong, I'll let for those people to find out what happens. Curses upon curses. Trust me, I would know. I had to break them myself.
Why are you so angry? They scream. Stop being violent, they snarl as they punch you in the face. Passive-aggressive people are intent on dominating you, but they're too dishonest to admit it. Now, it's not an honorable style of attack, but it's very effective, mostly because it's so bewildering. The Democratic Party practices this. Democrats will never meet you on an open field of battle. Instead, they will sneak up behind you and knock you unconscious with a bag of sanctimony. According to 18 U.S. Code 1507, the official position of the U.S. government is you're not allowed to intimidate judges. Period. Quote, whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice, or with the intent of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court officer in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building housing a court of the United States, or in or near a building or residence occupied or used by such judge, juror, witness, or court officer, or with such intent uses any sound truck or similar device or resorts to any other demonstration in or near any such building or residence shall be fined or imprisoned. So it's very clearly a crime. Jen Psaki either didn't know this or far more likely didn't care, because as far as the Biden administration is concerned, Justice Alito is responsible for the threats against his family. If you don't want to be targeted by a mob, then don't write opinions the mob doesn't like, Dumbo. You did this to yourself. It's your fault we're hurting you. That's always the position of passive-aggressive people, and it's the position of the passive-aggressive party. So we recognized it immediately because we watch this stuff for a living. And then we saw this, and it made us think. This ran on CNN this morning. Now, for days, we have assumed, based on quite a bit of evidence, that the main threat to Supreme Court justices right now, and to our justice system itself, comes from groups of activist liberals who are enraged by the idea that Roe v. Wade might be repealed. These are the people who are spray painting churches and putting Sam Alito's home address on the internet. They're the mob, and they're angry, and we know why they're angry, so the whole thing made sense to us. But according to CNN, that's not what's happening. In fact, it's the opposite of what's happening. The real threat, CNN informed us this morning, comes not from people who are angry about Sam Alito's, people who are happy about it. So the ones who are celebrating what Sam Alito wrote are the ones who are the real danger to the Supreme Court. Watch.
This morning, law enforcement officials are preparing for potential violence in the Capitol and nationwide after the leak of that Supreme Court draft opinion that would strike down Roe v. Wade after 50 years. Is calling for violence against a religious group planning to rally for abortion rights. Whitney Wild is live outside the Supreme Court. Listen, seeing fences go up there, it's sort of like post-January 6th. So what are you seeing, and what specific intelligence is worrying police officials?
Well, at this point, law enforcement sources, several of them tell us that they are closely monitoring social media chatter that suggests that there's a potential for violence against abortion clinic providers, abortion clinic staff, members of the judiciary. That would include the justices here, as well as members of the federal government. And what we know after January 6th.
Another thing, abortion clinic, like, attack, come on, like, think about it. You got all these kids pretty much constantly viewing for the same sex. So a man and a man can't have a child, a woman and a woman can't have a child. So why do these people even care about abortion clinics? Your legs are wide open, you're defiling the temple, and you ain't got no care in the world because you ain't gonna have nothing to repercussion of it, except what? Don't get me started on the diseases.
And what law enforcement knows across the country is that social media chatter can manifest into actual violence. Sometimes people really do say what they're going to do.
You got that? Law enforcement sources tell CNN the real threat here is the far right. The far right. Fences are going up outside the Supreme Court because the far right poses a threat. The far right is the one you have to watch out for. They're the ones whose electronic communications you've got to, quote, monitor closely. And that makes sense. Now that Roe v. Wade may be going away, these people are going to want to bomb as many abortion clinics as they can and hurt as many Supreme Court justices as possible. After all, the Supreme Court may get rid of a law that they have hated for 50 years. So you can see why they'd be moved to violence against the Supreme Court. Now, our first response to this was to laugh. It seemed too absurd to be real. How dumb do they think we are? And then we remembered what the President of the United States and his Attorney General have been telling us for more than a year. They've been telling us that no matter what happens, no matter what it may look like, the people who did it didn't vote for us. Yeah, the people who didn't vote for us are the dangerous ones. It's always their fault. Watch.
I have not seen a more dangerous threat to democracy than the invasion of the Capitol.
The greatest terrorism-related threat that we face in the homeland is the threat of domestic violent extremism.
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
Not Al-Qaeda, white supremacy. So when we reviewed those tapes, it started to make sense. Like the Mongols and the Visigoths before them, these dreaded white supremacists have declared war on civilization, these Trump voters, and the evidence for that is all around us. We've just ignored it because on some level we don't want to know. But in retrospect, it was always right in front of us. You recall when Trump voters looted that Macy's in New York City. They couldn't help themselves. That's who they are. Then they torched a police precinct in Minneapolis.
Watch, Fox. This is where, because we all know that these are all staged events and all these people or stage people, fallouts and stuff like that. Because, you know, the occult is everywhere. Every town, on every street, just to let you know. And these less fortunate individuals like to leave something for their family or, you know, set up maybe their future with a little bit of suffering for a year or so. So this is what they do. And then the news covers it like it's some kind of phenomenon. Watch. He's about to do it.
The very symbol of the law, they set it on fire. And then they burned a federal building in
But he's also going to tell the truth. Watch.
Portland, Oregon. In case you've forgotten what all of these right-wing attacks looked like from white supremacists, here's what they did. So you can see why they're putting up barriers in front of the Supreme Court. Those people are so happy with Sam Alito's opinion, they might start burning and looting again. And of course, that would be consistent with the years-long reign of right-wing terror we've been living through.
That's what they do.
Because their thirst for anarchy and chaos is never sated. At one point, these Trump voters seceded from the United States. They set up their own nation of lawlessness, drugs, and squalor, and violence within the very city limits of Seattle. Just like the Confederates of 1861, but with more weed and spray paint. Right in the middle of Seattle. Talk about brazen, but that's who they are. That could happen in your town. No wonder America's abortionist community is cowering in fear tonight. And it gets worse. These MAGA people have so little respect for law and order, they think nothing of rushing into buildings, department stores, Walgreens, liquor stores, Foot Locker, and just taking what they want. They steal armfuls of merchandise off the shelves and walk out the door like it's theirs. And then, purely to amuse themselves, they push strangers in front of trains and open fire on subway cars. They drive trucks through Christmas parades and beat elderly Asian women on the street. Now, you can't control these people because they're beyond the reach of logic. They are so primitive and superstitious, they have come to believe they can defeat nature itself with magic amulets, like cosmetics and women's clothing.
Here's the truth, brothers and sisters. This man is about to tell you the truth, but he's gonna mask it a little bit. Here's the truth.
They think they're shapeshifters who can change their physical form at will. Just become something different. You're seeing one on your screen right now. People like this don't believe in history or science. They're barely literate. So they communicate instead in grunts and unintelligible sounds. Here's the leader, the chief of their tribe, speaking in a language only they can understand.
So the best way to get something done, if you hold near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway.
What did he just say? We don't know. You'd have to be a right supremacist MAGA person to understand.
Okay, brothers and sisters, I wanted to add this in. This is Lincoln's inaugurational speech. Just about, let's see, how far down? We're pretty far down, close to the bottom. You see the line over there? Check this. This clearly states that the people, okay, this country, with its institutions, belong to the people who inhabit it. This also talks about how government isn't God, that government is a govern of the people, that the people still own and control those that govern over them. In Lincoln's inaugurational speech, he clearly says right here, giving people, he chooses the people. Not their parties, but the people. And that the people may choose. The people can choose. We can change. We can upright. We can do what we want. If we want to remove somebody out of power, we can do so. You just have to stand up and do it. And what I love about this, his inaugurational speech, you need to go ahead and go read it. Dude literally, he doesn't say, oh, about it, Jesus. Dude talks like how I talk. He's talking about Christ. See right here. Right here. There's still no signal good reason for intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on him who has never yet forsaken this favored land and still competent to adjust in the best way all our purpose difficulties in our hands. Fellow countrymen, and not in mind, is the what's that word? Momentous issue of civil war. Remember they were having that civil war. He wasn't a North or South. He was about peace. It even talks about in his inauguration speech how he's not, that the states do what the states do, and that the federal really can't have a say in that. But this is, what's the key word I just said? Civil war. Now, you've been hearing about wars and everything like that in all over the place. Rumors of wars, right? And all this stuff. Well, the biggest one I hate to hear is civil war. And that is what this racism, all this racism and all these controls, that's what it's building up to. That's why all these other countries are sitting here laughing at us, because their government, their people that govern over their people have taken full control of the people. They're talking about white supremacy being the big thing, being the terrorist thing. Well, what about when our administration pulled out of a country that we were protecting and left the opposing, the opposition, the enemy, a shitload of weapons, and on top of it, left Americans behind. It was pretty much a base. A shitload of Americans were there. Yeah, they might not have been born, but they all had citizenship. They were all Americans. They were left behind, and then they were slaughtered. They were slaughtered. What do you think they're doing in China? They got them locked up in their houses. They're talking about, oh, we want 100%. No flu. We don't want not one weak immune system in our country. We're going to be 100%. Nobody with a weak immune system. How are they going to do that? It's like they're trying to redo the cataclysm that's already happened. It's weird, man. They're really trying their hardest. And look at this date, 1861. I want you to keep that date, 1861, in mind, or 1860, because what I show you next is going to blow your mind.